Hey, folks, welcome to the Beans and Dice podcast, a podcast about
how we game.
I'm Carlos.
I'm Rob.
I'm Michael.
And today we're going to provide to you our review of Circadians First Light, and then we're going to give you the chat on what we've been up to gaming-wise. Stick around.
You're listening to the Beans and Dice podcast, a podcast about how we game.
All right, folks, let's get right into it. We're going to get into our review of Circadians First Light, and Michael will start us off with theme.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you the lowdown on the theme. So Circadians First Light, it's the theme behind it is you are humans that are traveling through space. You're kind of explorers, and you come across this planet that is pretty well occupied with different types of races of aliens. And it's more of a friendly
encounter,
not really an invasion type of game. You know, you're kind of landing on the planet, you're meeting the aliens, you're trying not to cause any friction, no war type of thing, but you would like to harvest resources. So the whole process of the game is the theme of the game, I should say, is you are doing everything from making deals with the aliens to running your harvester around the planet to the three different types of resources being water, electricity, and algae are the other ones. There's also crystals, but that's like a different thing. But those are the three main resources that you are harvesting from the three different types of races. And you are making deals with specifically three different types of races as well. And I mean, that's really the 30-second elevator pitch, 10,000 foot view of how the game plays theme wise.
Yeah.
How do you do it, Rob?
Okay.
Giveth the beans, Robert.
Some of the beans. So the bean counting part here. My favorite part, the mechanics of the game. So jumping into the game, the thing that I found really cool and the main mechanic of the game is there are dice involved. Yes, you heard me say that. Dice involved.
What?
So dice are cubes with dots on them, like we've mentioned before, and I'm a cube guy. I usually don't like dice, and you do actually roll the dice in this, so the dice do matter. But the really cool part is you're doing it secretly. Everybody has their own little player mat, and you've got a shield where you're rolling your dice behind a shield. At the beginning of the game, I believe each player starts with, is it four dice? Three dice. Okay, three dice.
3 or 4 dice.
Three or four dice. Okay, and you're rolling those behind your shield. And the reason you're putting behind a shield is because out on the main board, I say board, but there are all these little mini boards actually that are laid out that allow you to do the different actions in the game. So you've got, I'm just looking here, it's an example of a few of them. I think there's six main ones that you use from turn round to round to round. There's some others that you can place dice on that do things for you at the end of the game for scoring and things like that, or give you permanent abilities. But these ones that you're kind of using your dice, there's a laboratory, there's a mining camp, an academy, a foundry, I think 6 boards there total. But you are secretly placing your dice across the top of your little player board from left to right in the order that you will activate your dice. And so the importance on that is each of the little boards that you're putting your dice on to do these different actions, the specific actions require specific numbers on the dice. The colors don't matter because each player has their own color. But if I want to do, for example, there's a Mike mentioned you can run your harvester around a little sideboard that has a view of one side of the planet, and you're kind of running it around picking up resources in different places. Well, to move your harvester, there is they call it, I'm looking here, a control room board. And on that control room, if you want to move your harvester diagonally to the right, you have to place a 1 on that board. If you want to move it directly straight to the right, you place a 2, a 3, 4, 5, 6, kind of around the circle there, around the horn.
Envision like a hex shape, that you're
there you go with
creating
the
there.
6 corners, 6 sides on it for your 6 directions of movement on the hex board where you're moving that. So you're doing that secretly, and if you and someone else both want to move diagonally forward to the right, then you want to do that kind of secretly, and you might want to put that, if it's really important to you that you need to get to that spot and you need to make sure you do it before somebody might steal that spot from you, you need to place that 6 as one of your top priority things. And so the order in which you place your dice is important. So after everybody's placed all their dice, your dice as you get into the game will vary. You'll get extra dice to roll and more or less as you put them on this permanent board where they stay and other things. But then everybody reveals at the same time, so everybody's going to lift their shield. You're going to look around, and in our play of it, I've only played it one time, but we played it, me, Mike, and Muhammad, and I was sitting to Muhammad's right, so I was before him in turn order a lot of times, and he mentioned that I kept stealing the action that he wanted. One of the cool things about the game, there are a lot of places to place your dice. I mean, it's not like, if you don't get what you really, really want, tell me what you want, what you really, really want. But if you don't get what you really want, you could always find another use for that die. But it's one of those things that you've got that optimum thing you really want to do. And I think there were at least 2 or 3 rounds in the game where we revealed those things. And Muhammad, you could kind of see him start to fidget in his chair, and he was like, "Oh crap!" Rob again has placed a number that's probably the number that I wanted, and I'd go and place that die, and then he would blow up and be like, you did exactly what I wanted to do. Now you ruined my whole turn. Now I got to replan because I was going to do that to get that resource to then go over on that board and to do this thing and to cash that in for that. And now my whole turn, I've got to replan my whole turn. So that's a really fun part of the game. But so you've got these different things. You're doing a fair amount of converting resources in the game, which is something else I really like. Being a Euro gamer, and usually with my cubes, I'm pushing cubes and converting cube colors. But in this one, you're converting resources. The game has these really cool. They could have been cubes, but you've got the water, the algae, and the electricity. I
was going to say they're cubes in resource form.
Exactly. So they're like shaped. They're little wooden bits, but they're shaped like the resources. So I can live with that. They're not quite cubes, but they're the practically cubes. But anyway, you are converting these things to do different things. You're upgrading your abilities. One other thing that you can use dice for on your board is you have what they call them farms, I think. So you got a farming section. In farming, you can farm your own resources. So as far as getting the resources, you don't have to go out into the common area to do that. You just have to forego dice that you would put out in the common areas, which do some cool things, to put them, just to leave them on your board in kind of a middle section of your board where you have farming spots. And then each of the farming spots, you can take a certain number of the resources, again, depending on the number that you rolled. So there's this push and pull of the game that a lot of times the higher numbers out in the general area will give you better benefits of whatever you're going out for the general area. But then also on your personal board, the higher numbers convert into giving you resources at a better rate. And so you've got this push and pull is like, well, can I live with maybe putting this 2 out into the main area and doing something out there that may not be optimal, or maybe move my rover in that direction or something that's kind of not as important? Or, do I put it down here just to get a couple of water this turn, just to kind of maybe carry some resources over? It's not the 10 water that I was hoping for, but I'll place it down there, just get a couple water, and then move on with the next round. So that part of it is really cool. One thing I should also mention is at the beginning of the game, it is asymmetrical. I should probably started with this, but each player gets 2 leaders. I guess they're kind of leaders that you choose. You're going to get 2 leader tiles. You kind of secretly look at them, and then you decide which one you want. Everybody declares, I think in order you go around, each person declares which of the 2 leaders they want. You put the other one back in the box. But the leaders, I think we mentioned this in the last week's show, that the leaders are all seemingly broken in this game. They all allow you to do crazy stuff. Mine said anytime I was less than 4 dice, I got to add dice back to my pool to get back to 4. That was the one I didn't choose, actually. The other one was I get a free move of my rover at the end of every game round. So after everybody had gone, everybody had done their thing, I get to move my rover once for free. So I usually wasn't having to waste dice to move my rover around, because I knew at the end of every round I could move on to another space, get some different resources, and so that was really cool. I don't remember what your abilities were, Mike.
Mine was I didn't have to, because like you were saying, where you place your dice in your garage, theme. I got to get back to the theme side.
Oh, okay.
You're placing your dice. These are like your workers that you're placing, so they're in your garage. Well, once you get past the first ship, I believe you have to start paying resources in order to use those ships, and you're paying with algae, so you're using algae as fuel to get these ships out there. Well, my leader, I didn't have to pay for any of the ships to bring them out.
That's
so
right. Yep.
Like Rob wasn't having to worry about moving his harvester because he's getting that movement for free. I didn't have to worry about necessarily going heavy on collecting algae, because a lot of the algae that I would be required to use, it just wasn't there. So.
Right, and that was nice for you not to have to worry about. You could place all your dice at the top. So yeah, I didn't mention that as you place those dice in the action selection area at the top of your thing, the first one is free. I think the second and the second one actually, now that I'm looking, costs you 1 algae. So not only do you have to have the die enough die to place a second die up there, you then, when you go to activate it and put it on the main board, you have to pay an algae. If you want to put 3 dice up there, your third dice is going to cost you 2 more algae. So if you place the second and the third, you're now looking at 3 algae. Right. And then it looks like the fourth one that you can place up there, or the fifth one that you can place up there, is also 2 algae. So again, you're having to pay this algae each time. Another interesting mechanic is if you can't pay the algae, or you choose not to pay the algae, you can always just kick the die over to the right side of the board and you just get 2 water for it. So again, it's a consolation. Right. So there were times in the game.
And there's upgrades for your ships also where you don't have to pay for the algae as well during the game.
Yeah, I was going to mention that there's the foundry space on the board. That's in the common area, that if you place a die out there, you can buy upgraded garages or ships, or however you want to look at it.
Mm-hmm. Garages.
But okay, the garages, they allow you to do things like, some of them allow you to not have to pay the algae cost. Some of them allow you to modify the die that you place in that position up or down by 1. I think there was one that allowed you to flip it to the other side, so you could place a 1 there, and then when it came, that time, you could, if the 1 was okay, then you place the 1, but if not, you could flip it over to the other side, and all of a sudden it's a 6, and you can place the 6. So that's really cool. There's also the laboratory section of the main common area allows you to upgrade those farm areas, so you can make your farm areas more efficient, or some of them allow you to just get an extra die each time or something like that. So they give you little perks there, which is really cool. I don't remember the name of the board. There was one other board there that allowed you to fulfill certain requirements. So by paying either a certain amount of algae, a certain amount of electricity, or a certain amount of gems.
For the crates.
The crates.
They called them, I think they were called crate cards, I think is what they're calling.
Okay. But you're placing up there, you can place a die up there. That's one of those permanent areas that if you place a die there, it's going to take it out of your pool and it's going to put it up into that area for the rest of the game. So you have 1 less die to roll unless you can acquire another die through other mechanics in the game. Each person can go to each of the spots. Like the first one, like on algae, looks like it was pay 6 algae.
Oh, I'm sorry. Right? I'm thinking of the other board. No, this is like the where you go to make like deals with the 3 different races.
The local races. There you go. That's it. Yeah. So the first spot is it's a straight payment of 6 algae. You place your die there, and then you get a certain number of victory points. Looks like maybe 2 or 3 victory points. If somebody wants to do a one-time cash in of algae and they want to place in the second position, they have to pay 9, and there's a third and fourth position where they pay 12 or 15. Only one person can go there, so there's that for each of the algae. There's that for each of the electrical areas, and then there resources, and then there's one for the gem resources. And the first person to get there and cash in that much as a one-time give is locked in to getting those victory points at the end of the game. Also at the top, you mentioned the 3 races. That was random in the game, I believe, as well.
That is random as well, yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay. So you're putting out 1 tile from each of the 3 races, and that will give you a one-time bonus when you place a die in that area. It'll give you another little game-breaking bonus that you can do the one time when you place a die. One of them I remember was to rearrange your whole player board. You could rearrange any of the tiles one time, so you could move some stuff up and move some stuff down. Yeah. So there was some really cool kind of game-breaking kind of things up there. And then there's another little mechanic, not to get too deep into it, but when you place that, down below that, there's another little area that has these little discs that you move, or these little cylinders that you move over. The first person to place a die on this board that is a 1 or a 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or a 6 gets to then take a one-time bonus by picking up the little cylinder, moving it from the left side. So the first person on that whole board who placed
negotiation board
placed a 1.
Yes.
It's called negotiation board. Yeah, there you go. You can pick that up and then you move it to one of the bonuses on the right, and you're permanently blocking that 1 bonus for the rest of the game. So there were things like get an extra die, draw an extra, I think, victory point card, get some extra crates. So that was kind of cool, trying to race up to do that. And then on the flip side of that, there are the below that is another track, and in each of these 3 race areas, as you place the die up there, Each person who places adds up the total of all the die that have been placed there, and if they go over certain amounts, there's a penalty area where you have to pick up a cylinder from the left side and move it to the right side, and it's a one-time penalty against you that you have to do. So it's fun seeing maybe the first person place a 5 or 6 up there. I think the first threshold was like 9 or 10 or something. So
I think it's 8 or higher.
Is it 8 or higher?
Okay.
Yeah.
8, 10, 12, 15.
And then it goes into matching numbers. Like I think the last 2 are if you have the same number in the column.
Right. Yeah. If you match another number that's already up there. So that was interesting seeing people. I think the first time me and Mo did it, we put small numbers because we were like, oh, well, we don't want to hit these things because we don't want to take these penalties. But then started thinking about it. And I was like, hold on, maybe if I'm the first one there, I want to place like a 6 up there because then the next person who's going to place, if they don't place a 1, they're going to hit that 8 threshold, and then they're going to have to move that cylinder over and take a penalty.
Yep.
But
and Mo's leader power was the negatives actually were positives
for him. So he was waiting for the numbers to get up so that he could place up there. He could get the bonus on the top. He could get the bonus on the bottom. Yeah, he was getting those bonuses both ways. So that's a really cool part of the game. But the only other part of here, that last board, and I think that was the one that you were starting with before. There's that board, and I can't remember. So up there, you're placing the die. You're getting the bonuses that are on that one.
Right. So each, there's 3 different rows. Each row will give you a bonus. So I think one was like moving your harvester, one was gaining a die, and then one was getting extra crates, maybe?
It is, yep.
So, and the columns are numbered by the number of dice sides, like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Mm-hmm.
And again, once you put your die there, it's permanently up there. So you're losing the die, but you're also blocking people from going there, and you're getting that one-time bonus as well. But I'll let you get back to it. You have to be able to pay for that crate card in order to put a die there. So if you want to touch on that.
Right. The crate cards are... it's one of the ways you get victory points in the game. So at the beginning of the game, I think we all got, was it 2 or 3 of those that we
were drafting?
Right.
Yeah, we drafted, we deal out 4, and then you draft 3 out of the 4.
Draft 3 of the 4. You take 1, you pass, do that a couple times, and then you throw away the last one. And these are different combinations of resources that, again, you can pop as a one-time deal. As long as you can pay the cost of that card, that's where you go and you place your die up on this permanent board where your die stays up there. And then when you place one, you have to be able to, I say build, I don't know if it's really building, but you have to be able to pay for in resources one of the cards that's in the crate cards that's in your hand. So you'd flip that card face up. It's going to give you victory points at the end of the game. Some of them give you bonuses or abilities, if I remember correctly.
Some will give you abilities, some will give you bonuses at the end of the game. Like if you have X number of resources left over. Right,
scoring bonuses. And so that's another part of the game is trying to build these, and I know that's a big way to get points. And that reminds me, looking at that board here on the BGG, one of the other really cool things about the game is there's a deck. I think that's the timer for the game, isn't it? There's a deck of, is it 8 cards?
Each round, There's 8 rounds.
So there's 8 cards. Each round you flip, at the beginning of the round, you flip a card, and it's going to be a rule that everybody has to abide by for that rule of the game, of that round of the game. About half of them are positive and about half of them are negative. So some of them are helping everybody, some are handcuffing everybody, and sometimes it'll take away the one thing you wanted to do this turn. You may flip it, and it's been like, nope, you can't go to that spot this round. And so it's like, that's it builds a little of that angst in the game. So it was a really cool game. I really enjoyed it. It didn't take that long. It was a little bit of a teach, but once we learned it, I mean, it moves pretty quick. The simultaneous dice placing, I think, speeds up the game. The fact that everybody's doing it at the same time, placing their die, deciding how to do it. The game definitely does get thinky and a little brain burny as you move on. That was the first couple rounds are light, they're quick. You're just trying to gain some resources and do some things. But then as the game goes along, you're trying to figure out, of course, as many of these, how do I squeak out that last few victory points that I'm going to need to put me over the top in this? But it was a really fun game, and I'm interested. Just kind of throw it back to you, Mike. How did you find out about this game? What's the history on that? It's not a game that I've heard a whole lot about.
Yeah, I saw it on. This was probably, I think it landed on Kickstarter like 2018 or 2019. I can't remember exactly, but I happened to see it. It was like in the middle of my Kickstarter days, I guess you could
When you
say.
go hot and heavy on the Kickstarter.
Yeah, I had been into Kickstarter probably about a year and a half at that point.
Oh, no, it still goes, but still running through his blood. He reined it in a little bit.
Before I became a super backer. So
there you go. Yeah.
So anyway, I happened to see it, and I think it was Man vs. Meeple. They did like a preview on it.
Okay.
And I felt the art was different. I know that Sam Phillips. I keep saying Shim Phillips.
Yep.
They had done the Western Kingdom games. I keep forgetting, like
all those games. There's
anyway, so
Architects
Architects.
Settler.
So I was like, the artwork is kind of unique on this one. It's a little bit more, I don't know. A lot of people really didn't care for the artwork on it, actually. I think some of the alien races kind of have like this wide-eyed dead stare to them, but it seems very symmetrical. Everything seems very symmetrical, almost like it was done computer. I'm not saying it is, but it looks like it was done on a computer where you draw half and then you just mirror the other half to make it kind of look like that. But anyway,
sure.
I thought the artwork looked good, but then when I saw the preview and the whole using your dice as worker placement, not that it's anything new, but I just kind of fell in love with the game. I just thought it was like going to be this really high strategy worker placement type of game where there's just, and I think it is maybe a little bit overwhelming on your first play where you're just like, okay, you've been explained the game, and you go to the first round, you're just like, I don't even know what the hell I'm going to be going for in this game. Like, I just don't know. There's just so much to do, and I just liked how, even though you can maybe unintentionally block somebody or intentionally, if you kind of figure out what they're doing, there's always some way to mitigate what dice you have. You're never going to be stuck with dice that give you nothing, which I don't care for games like that. It isn't a type of game where you're like building up for the whole game, and then all of a sudden the last round you're just like, I just wasted my entire game trying to get this and I didn't get it. It's nothing like that. So I like that about it. I liked asymmetrical powers. I love that. And I just kind of found out about it, like almost kind of like fell over it, looking through Kickstarter one day, and it really didn't get I don't think it got enough press for what it was.
Yeah,
honestly,
I'm gonna say it's underrated. I'm gonna just real quick the BGG stats on it as I always run through here. So the overall ranking 948. In any game, it's in the top 1,000 on BGG is pretty good. Much a great game. Yeah, I'd say borderline great. I mean, it's a 7.7 rating. It's a 2019 release. I think, as you mentioned, 1 to 4 players. It says 60 to 90 minutes. Our game probably took us a little closer to 2 hours, maybe just because it was a learning game. And
I think it was just under 2 hours with the teach.
Okay, with the teach, so that wasn't bad.
Yeah,
they've got it listed as weight a little on the weighty side, 3.45. But again, I think, as you said, it's just because there are so many options. There's so many things you can do.
Yeah,
the mechanics of the game really aren't that hard, but it's just there are a lot of choices, a lot of places to go, and I think it's a game that you kind of have to take that dive. When you were explaining it, I think Mo and I might have both mentioned it's like, okay, that's a lot of information. Let's just jump into it. Let's just play it. I'm going to start placing dice. We're going to see what happens. So it's one of those games that I know we talked about it while we were playing it, though, and we mentioned it afterwards, that it was one of those games that Mohammed and I both at some point in the game said, whoa, this is a good game. This is a fun game. And so even though we were swimming in the deep end a little bit, it was a good game. Just to finish off here, designer S.J. McDonald, as you mentioned, Sam Phillips as the artist, and publisher here in the States, Garp Hill Games. And so it's definitely one that I'm looking forward to playing again. It's one of those that the first time it's like, oh, okay. About halfway through, I was like, all right, now I see what's going on. Now I see how stuff combos up. I see how you get points here, and definitely one that I'm looking forward to try it out again. But
yeah, you definitely have to. I feel you have to get a full game in before you can. Before you can, come out of the gate running, knowing exactly what you want to do in the game.
Right. Although I didn't feel like I lost much by not doing that, because like you say, the first couple of rounds, they're pretty quick. And the first couple of rounds, you're just kind of finding your way. You're going where other people didn't go, and you're grabbing some resources. You're upgrading a few things. But after that first couple of rounds where you're kind of going where you're kind of forced to go a little bit, I mean, you got some choices that you get to make, but then that kind of starts setting your strategy. Once you start building your player board, once you start figuring out how many dice you're going to roll each round, you see what other people are kind of starting to lean towards. That kind of starts.
Once you realize that you're going to need resources the next round.
Exactly. I know I complained early on. I told you at the beginning, I was like, how do you get resources in this game? And then I know I mentioned about 2/3 of the way through the game, holy mackerel, I'm swimming in resources over here. How do I spend resources? How do I get rid of water? Because I just got stacks of water over here. So, so we got to throw it over now to Carlos. I know he's making notes over here, but so have we sold you on the game? What do you think? What are your impressions?
I'm okay. So I'm not 100% certain yet, right?
Okay.
Folks, I'll recommend. I know this is an audio podcast. I recommend at home to follow along better. Maybe pull up the BGG or the rule book online so you can get an idea what we're talking about. Because you're right, there's that 3.45 weight.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of things going on this table. So to clarify in my mind here, we've got this blinder board, right? This board to hide. How many boards are you hiding behind?
Just your little player board.
Just your one.
Your one player board.
Just your player board, yeah.
So I see your player board there. It's got spots on it. You've got dice, and each of you have a certain color. Like each of you has a color.
Right. Yeah.
Rob is blue, as always.
I was blue. Yeah.
Always blue. Okay, so Rob is blue. Rob's going to chuck his dice.
Yep.
Right, and then put him behind this blinder board and place him on his one research board.
Yeah, and actually you're rolling them behind the board, or we rolled them behind behind your screen.
So it is on an honor system.
Yeah. So his research base is where he's going to place them. How do they go from your research base? Right. So now you've revealed your blinders. Everybody can see what you place. Right. How do your dice go from the research base to all the other locations on the board, the shared spaces?
Yeah, that's when you hit the action phase. So
I didn't explain that very well, but go ahead, Mike. Yep.
No, that's all right. There's like a first player, token that makes its way around all the people clockwise.
Yep.
So if you're the first player, you get to place your dice, and you're placing your dice left to right from your garage.
Inside your research base, your one
correct
player board.
Correct. So if you have 3 dice, you're starting with the first one all the way to the left, which is the one that allows you to up or down the pip count by 1.
Right. Naturally, that's printed on the board. Yep.
Right. And then if I'm the first player, I get to choose on the other boards where I want to place that die, and then get whatever, I'm either paying for something and getting it back, or I'm trading in resources for this, or I'm making agreements with the aliens.
Those are all those locations that are open to everyone.
Right.
Correct. So I would take my first die and I would place it out, and I would get whatever. Then it would go to the next person clockwise. They would move their first die out if they have one, or if they're, because you could.
Is it only the dice that are in the garages?
Yes.
That go out?
Yep.
Correct.
Okay.
I see an area. You can place all your.
I see an area above the garage. What is?
Well, that is those spots. The garages just hold the little icons for the ships, because you can.
Yeah, I saw you guys buying vehicles, and I thought that was so cool. You were putting them in these little garages.
All those do is they allow you to modify dice or to do different things with the dice that's directly
above that, on the dirt outside the garage is the dice you're placing.
Right.
When you reveal, you take that dice and you place it. You would take your, I guess in my mind, theme wise, I'm gonna drive my little lunar vehicle out and put it on one of the spaces on the planet to do one of those actions. Okay, that makes a lot more sense in my head now.
Yeah. And then you got that middle section I talked about is where your farms are. Yep. So
those don't go out.
Right. If you forego putting dice at the top, you can split your dice however you want. But if you put them down in the farming area, then the farming is after all the actions are done. Then simultaneously, everybody will do their farming actions, and will just go across their board, take whatever resources they.
It's like going hunting in Champions of Midgard.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not using your dice to go out on adventures.
Right.
These dice are just going to go get you some food.
Yep. Exactly.
Right.
Okay.
So you're using those, and then.
And then after, that would be like the harvesting phase, and then the final phase after that is you basically are cleaning up the board. You move the token around. You flip over the card for the next round.
Everybody gets
which kind of dictates a positive or negative effect for that round, and
yep.
Okay, so the planning phase is when, and I like this part. This part that really interested me. In the planning phase, so it goes planning, execution, harvest, and then rest. In the planning phase, it says the event card is revealed. Now, how cool are the event cards? Like, they really matter?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
They can definitely affect the game. Because sometimes it'll say, like my power was I didn't have to pay the algae for my ships. I think one of the positive cards that came out was ships don't cost algae to use this round or something like that. It was almost like it made my power
Negated it
worthless for that particular round because everybody else was getting it.
Yeah, for one round. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, right, it's only one round. And then I'm trying to remember like one of the negatives. Another positive is like you can use your cards for like a specific resource this round if you wanted to, or something to that effect. But like a negative one would be.
I remember there was one of the positive ones. While you're thinking about negative, one of the positive ones I remember specifically was the in your farming area. This round, everything generates twice as many resources as it normally would. So.
Is there some theme in that card? Some maybe a title or some words or pictures that
on those particular cards? No.
Okay, very minimalistic on that. You got to. Really...
I don't think there was any kind of flavor text or anything like that.
No, there's a title on them. I can see. I can't read it here on the BGG when I'm looking at, but let me see if I can zoom in on it and tell. But. Yeah, I'm not sure how thematic the titling.
That's just me being super themey, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
I embrace that, man. Don't worry about
this one. I can read here on the BGG picture I'm looking at. It says Spring Clean. It says
I love it.
The laboratory only requires one die, and all foundry costs may be ignored. And so, if you go to those spots on the board, it allowed you to do the foundry without paying the cost. Normally the foundry costs you either 2 electricity or 10 water to be able to place a die there and to take one of the upgrades on one of the little ships, the garage spaces. So yeah, they allow you just little things like that. But spring clean. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's kind of thematic, kind of matches up. It gives you something.
But it's an event. I mean, that's cool. Like so many games just kind of go through a monotony of it becomes rote because you're doing the same thing every round.
Yeah,
and just figuring out the exact. This makes someone like a Robert.
Yeah,
you know, there's a type of people. Robert is one of them.
I completely just skipped the titles. I just read what it did.
But I'm talking about the mechanism of the event makes someone like a Robert have to rethink their thoughts, plans, strategy for the game because of this thing. So now if he had an idea what he wanted to do at the start of the round, but now that farming doubles up, well, guess what? I guess I'm going to prioritize some farming this round. That's going to change my plans. I love that. That is a big positive for me.
Yeah, good. Yeah. It's
I think you would like it, Carlos.
No, I mean, it sounds awesome.
Yeah, it was
and
good.
you kept coming when we were playing it. You kept coming over from your. I know we said this last week, but you kept coming over from your other game, and you're just like, "Oh man,
look at that! Look at this! What does that do?"
But that's strictly artwork. Like strictly artwork kept drawing me back there. It looks, folks. It looks like something like I think I mentioned it last time. A Masters of Orion old video game where you're collecting resources on a planet. And you're building your base, kind of an XCOM feel, right? You're building your base, you're getting your vehicles, you're upgrading that. But now with the description of the mechanisms that go behind it, I can see the cutthroatiness part of it, right? So you're going to place dice on your player board.
Definitely.
Now, the dice that you place on your board, based on the number you place them, does that limit where they can go on the locations on the planet, like all the different locations?
Yeah, each one of the locations has very specific here. Like just looking at look at the foundry. So you're going to have these.
Well, some are specific, some are not. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, so some are more open, and some are very asking for a specific number or combination.
Correct.
Right. And so some of them are going to depend on the number. Like the foundry, you take the little upgrade for your garages, and put them the little tiles into 3 stacks. And I guess that's pretty random. You just randomize those. Yeah. Okay, and place those in 3 stacks. But like to pull the top one from stack 1, you have to place a 1 or a 2 there.
Is that an or?
Or it's either a 1 or a 2. And then to take the one from the second stack, you got to do a 3 or a 4, and then the third stack is a 5 or a 6. So again, it's randomized. This one that you really wanted may have come up in the first stack, or maybe the second stack, or it may have just happened to come up in the third stack. But then during that turn, you've got to allocate a die with that number if you really want that one. And then the foundry, there's only one spot to go there, so only one person can go there each round of the game and grab one of those
upgrade one of their vehicles. Yeah. So this is the moment you talked about when you lifted your blinders and Muhammad would groan because he can see what your top left die is, and he can correlate that number to a location.
Yeah, he knew that that garage upgrade was a really cool one, and me and him were both new to the game, so we may not know which the cool ones were, which weren't. But we saw it. We both kind of, ooh, that one looks pretty cool. And so it needed a 5 or a 6. So when he saw me reveal, and I was right ahead of him in turn order, and that round, and I had placed my 6. He's like, oh crap! I hope he's not using that 6 to go to the foundry this time,
which only has one spot for one player that round to buy a vehicle.
Exactly.
And it also, just so you know, those boards that are placed out, they are double-sided depending on the number of players.
Oh, okay. So
with the 3 players,
the
right. So it kind of opens up a little bit more when you have 4 players that are in the game.
I see the setup I'm seeing here is 1 to 2 players, and so it's only one spot for 1 to 2. But I think in our game we did have 2 spots there, so 2 spots for 3 to 4 players. So.
Is the game overly tight, too tight in locations, like not fun?
No, I wouldn't.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Just right.
Yeah, I'd say it was.
Yeah.
It was enough there to be frustration, but like I say, the fact that you may have been like some of these places, there's the market where you go to exchange resources in different amounts, and so there's one that's a little better than the other. So again, the first person there is going to take the one that gives them probably the better exchanges. The second person who goes is going to still be able to do exchanges. It's just not going to be at the same rate that the first person did.
So it kind of reminds me of After the Empires, where it feels like it's very tight.
Yeah.
But it's not too punishing. You just got to go somewhere else and wait for be first player next turn.
Right.
And there's also another space on the board that we didn't touch on. There is a space where you can put a die or dice there, and they're held over. You don't get anything for it. I think you get to pick either 2 crate cards.
Oh yeah.
Or something else. I can't remember exactly what it is.
Item cards.
5 water. The headquarters. Yep.
So your dice stays there till the next round, but all those dice get placed first, regardless of who the first player is. Right. So if there's something that you really want, and say you got blocked this round and you had a die for it, you can put your die there, and then the next round, regardless of who's the first player, you get to play those dice in order.
Yeah, there's 4
anywhere you want on the board.
4 spots there: first, second, third, and fourth.
They will go before any player takes an action.
Right.
Correct.
And so you get a little thing for putting them there. It's just not as good as probably.
When are we playing?
One of the other areas. Yeah, it's a good game.
I'm sold.
Yeah, it was a good game. It was a lot of fun, and the mechanics. This is definitely a game that, I mean, there's some theme and there's some pretty art, but I think the mechanics in this one really are solid, and that's what really did it for me.
They're getting ready to come out with like the second game. We've probably touched on this before. They're coming out with the second game in this universe called Chaos Order. Totally different game from what I understand, but they are going to, because this game you can't buy anymore, but they are reissuing it. They're redoing the art. They're kind of upgrading the components a little bit to kind of bring it in line with the Chaos Order game. And the box is even going to be a little bit bigger to match the size of the box of Chaos Order. So if you can't find it online, or you don't want to buy it secondhand, if you just wait a little bit, the second edition is going to be coming out. So the cover art, I think they have
going to be
on
a
BGG.
Kickstarter?
I think it might be on Kickstarter.
Okay.
But the cover art that they have currently on BGG is not the original cover art that of the version that I have. I think it looks. I think the artwork does look better on the second edition. Not that I don't like the one that I have, but
I like both. They're definitely different.
Yeah.
I like them both.
All right, I'll give my final thoughts, and we'll go around with your final thoughts. My final thoughts, based on the artwork alone, it had me. Right, the board, the player setup, hearing you guys lifting the blinders and complaining.
Yeah,
that had me.
That interaction. Yeah,
listening and talking through the mechanisms of the game, of how it ties into your research base. So I have a research base. I have vehicles. I'm using dice to tell which vehicles to go where to take what actions. To me, I think that's going to connect theme to mechanisms that matter to me. That matters to me. Yeah. Connecting theme to mechanisms. I think I see it there. I like worker placement games, and although they're using dice instead of workers, it's still the same thing.
Yeah.
Right, same thing. Is worker placement, so I can plan out my route for what I need and pray you guys don't get in my way. Yeah. I love that. Correct. I love that feeling. Yep. So overall, in the way you describe the game, I'm I'm sold. I think this was one I'm looking forward to playing.
Yeah.
When we can get a game day together with Michael's copy.
Right. Yeah.
Mike, any final thoughts on Circadians Light?
I love it, man. I mean, when I first joined your guys' group, and we started doing, or you guys were doing the monthly get-togethers, and I literally would bring it with me every single time.
I saw it back there. You talk about it all the time.
I'd see it
I used to
back
try. I used to try and get people. Oh man, you got to try this game, Circadians. And I know, and your previous episode that you were just talking about, box art that is ugly. A lot of people did not like this art, and they would look at the box art and they'd be like, "Yeah, no, that's all right." And I'd be like, "All right, it's a good game."
Know what you're missing out on.
Yeah.
Well.
And so it took this long to finally, get to talk, not even talk anybody into it. I mean, I think Rob, you were pretty willing to play it. And Mo, hopped on board as well. And Mo even said to me, in the middle of the game, he's like, "This game is so good. Why did you take so long to show?" I was like,
He blamed
I brought it
you.
every month.
Right. Yeah.
I stopped bringing it because nobody ever wanted to play it.
It seemed like there was always one other game. It's like from month to month to month, somebody would bring the new hotness, and it would be like Circadians or Scythe or Circadians or whatever's going on. And
I like how he blamed you. He put it on you.
Yeah, Mohammed.
Well, it is what it is. But I mean, I don't know if I would put it in my top 10. Yeah. But it's definitely in my top 20.
Yeah,
without even thinking, it's in my top 20.
It's got to get more plays, but I'm thinking, it could definitely be a game that'd be in my top 25-ish. Yeah, that would be about right. I don't know that it would crack the top 10, but I like it. I'd say it's definitely a Euro game, although there's enough of the player interaction and there's enough, just a touch of luck. Although lots of ways in this game to mitigate that. You can get those little upgrades to your garages that allow you to modify die, like I mentioned, rolling them up or down one, flipping it to the other side, and between having those spots available to you and then being able to choose where you put your die. If you roll the number you want, then you lock it in. If you don't, then put it in one of those spots where you can modify. And one of those is built into the board. The very first spot is permanent.
The first garage with the vehicle.
That always allows you to modify by one. And so,
every other one, you've got to go to the foundry, upgrade your vehicle to be able to do modifications.
Right. Those all start out just as blanks. And so you're just, whatever you place there, the die number you place there is the die that you place there. But as you get into a couple rounds, and if you like the mitigation side of it and not leaving it to chance, then like me, because dice hate me, I need to buy those modifications. I need to get there to the foundry.
What's the resource that you spend for modifications?
That one was either electricity. It was it 2 electricity or 10 water?
Or water?
Yeah, 10 water. So,
and the thing, I know we didn't touch on this either. You have to in the garage. You have to place your dice left to right.
Yes.
Right.
Same thing with your power-ups. You have to put your power-ups in the garage left to right.
Right. So you can't mix them around where they are unless you get some ability.
But there's that one. There's that one alien. If you make the deal with it,
let you rearrange
that
your
tiles. Right. It could come into the game. It may not, but it allows you to rearrange it however you want as well.
Yeah. So
anyway, go ahead, Rob.
There's enough.
What's your final thoughts, Rob?
Yeah, my final thought, I would say I'd give it a pretty solid 8.5, 9 out of 10 on just one play. So I need to get some more plays in again to see how it climbs up there. But yeah, it's definitely a game that. Why didn't you bring this to our attention sooner? Why did you hide this for so long? It's a game I wish I had played a year ago. So it's a good game. And I think Carlos will enjoy it. I think we got to get it out with him here and let him get a run through on it. Yep.
Definitely.
Circadians First Light.
Yeah.
That's our review for this week. Stick around for the chat. Right after this, we're going to talk about what we've been playing, what we've been up to, what we've been buying, all kinds of stuff in the chat.
Hey, this is Jamie Stegmeyer from Stonemeyer Games, and you are watching the Beans and Dice podcast.
Welcome back. Next segment, we're going to talk a little bit about what we've been up to, games we've purchased, games we've played recently, anything geeky goodness, anything that we've been up to that's loosely or directly related to board games or anything going on in the geek world. So I'll start us off. I had a chance to play a new game. It wasn't mine, but it was a Kickstarter that a buddy of ours, Chester, in our game group picked up. He invited me over to his house last weekend, and I had a chance to play Titans. It's plural, but it's a 2021 release. It's a dudes on a map kind of game. It's 1 to 4 players, 80 to 160 minutes. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the designer's first name. The last name is Wozniak, and it's 2.
I thought English was your first language.
It is, but this isn't English. Whatever this is, Lukáš Wozniak, but it's a weight of a 2.62 on the BGG weight scale. And this was a game that actually I had heard some not positive things about. I'd heard that there was a good amount of downtime. I'd heard it was kind of basic, that there wasn't a whole lot going on, and that at 3 and 4 players, when other people were doing battles, that you kind of just sat back and watched, and it didn't move along at a very snappy pace. I did not find that to be the case. We did a learning game, and I will say, it's advertised 80 to 160 minutes. None of us had played. It was a 4-player game. It's the first time Chester had been wanting to play it for months. He's been asking for people to get in on it. He's actually brought it to a couple of game days. And the thing that's really held us back was that nobody had learned it yet. And so I had watched a couple of videos. Chester had watched one video, and then the other 2 players were new. Actually, one of them wasn't much even of a gamer. He's getting new into gaming. Name's Ian. But we learned it on the fly. I'd say the first hour was kind of was a little slow. We were learning the mechanics and learning how to play the game. But there really isn't a whole lot to the mechanics. One of the interesting things about it is it's a dudes on a map. It's a battle game. You're a lot of conflict. It's a fairly small map. There's not a whole lot of spaces. Although I will say the board I think is 2-sided. The side we played on was the tighter side. It's where they recommend you start out. But you don't have a whole lot of forces. I think you only have it's 12 pieces of plastic plus 1 large Titan. Everyone has a Titan that has a special
When
ability.
you say large, what do you mean large?
I don't know the millimeters. I know y'all war gamers know all of your 35 millimeter.
Is it the size of like a peanut, an apple?
It's about, what about 8,
a
9
banana?
inches, 9 inches tall. So I mean, it's
bigger than a banana.
Yeah, it's a pretty big little.
It is a Titan.
It's a Titan.
That's no longer miniature.
Yeah, it
it's
towers-
outside of miniature category.
Yeah, it towers over the little miniatures that remind me of like little army guys. They're you got artillery. You've got
almost like
infantry.
Risk. Like the little guys are the size of Risk.
The little bigger. They're a little bigger. They're like I said, almost like the Green Army men that you buy. So they're
And then the Titans are like 9 inches tall.
yeah, they're like 5-6 times taller than those. So yeah, they tower over. But each person has just the one. But anyway,
They're like real Titans.
Yeah, they're Titans. The game lives up to its name there. But as far as the mechanics, you're just there's action cards that everybody is. They call it drafting. I guess officially it is drafting. But there's 16 of them in the deck, and they come out in groups of 5. So you actually reveal the 5 that you're going to have this round, and then you reveal the 5 that are going to be next round, so you can see what's coming the next round. And then there's 6 more that are face down. You're going to reveal 5 of those 6. So from rounds to rounds in the game, you're not getting exactly the same choices of the options. There's one card that's not going to be played each time. But in a 4-player game, you go around on each person one at a time. You're going to draft one of the cards that's available up there, and the actions on the cards are move different units. Like each of them has usually, or I can't say each of them, most of them have 3 actions. One will be like move an infantry unit, move a cavalry unit, and then move a Titan. Or it may be place a cavalry on the board, and you can place it anywhere that you control, and then move a unit. There's one for build a fortification. There's only 3 fortifications in the game, but you can build a fortification, which gives you just a small bonus in combat. If somebody takes over a fortification, it gives them a bonus point. But anyway, you're doing that on your turn. You're taking your whole turn. You're doing the whole card, doing whatever the 2 or 3 actions on the card are. At the end, if you have moved into someone else's territory, you do a battle. The battling in this game is dice-based for the most part. You do have some cards that you can buy throughout the game that you place face up that allow you to tap them, to exhaust them as you're using them to do abilities during combat. But you're just going through, you resolve your combat. One of the other real cool things about the game, I'm not going to get too deep into it, but there's a little grid on the little chart on the corner of the board. And depending on how much you win the combat by, it determines what happens. And what I mean by that is if you win by 0 to 2, when you add up all the numbers and all the strengths of everything, then nobody dies. The loser on a 0 to 2 win, the loser just has to retreat. You only get 2 victory points for winning. Whoever won that combat gets 2 victory points. No units are lost. Oh, and then the loser gets to draw what they call a tactics card, or I call it a tactics because it has a big T on the back, but they actually call them strategy cards, not tactics cards, which was kind of blew my mind. But anyway, you get to draw a card as a consolation for losing. If you win by 3 to 5, then the loser loses 1 piece of plastic. They have to retreat. You get 4 victory points instead of 2 victory points, and then the loser draws 2 of these strategy cards, so it makes them better. They lost, they had to retreat, but they're going to draw a couple cards. Now they're going to have some more options on their turn when they go into combat. And then if you win by, actually I said 3 to 5, it was 3 or 4. 5 or more is the highest level. If you win by 5 or more, then the loser loses 2 pieces of plastic. And again, in this game where you only have 12 pieces of plastic plus your Titan for the whole game, losing a couple, you can redeploy them, but losing a couple pieces of plastic is pretty big because you're kind of spreading out. You're spreading yourself thin to start with, but then you get it's like 6 victory points or something. So the victory points go up. Loser loses more, but the loser gets to draw 3 consolation cards off of the strategy deck. And so, without getting too much further into the mechanics, it was a good time. It was a lot better than I was expecting. And definitely a game that I would play again. I think definitely a game that you would like, Carlos, the dudes on a map. The combats were actually pretty quick. They do get a little bit thinky because there is a little bit of card play. You can play some things to modify some things, but you're basically just rolling dice. You're seeing what happens. Each person rolls simultaneously, and then starting with the defender can modify their dice with cards and with abilities. Then the attacker, once they're locked into a number, then the attacker gets to go, and then the attacker can. You got this choice when you're doing battle of how much do I want to beat them by. So I can play one card and get to where I just beat them by 1 or 2. That's just going to make them retreat. I'm only going to get 2 victory points. Or do I go ahead and pile on these other couple of cards that I've got and just really drive them into the ground? It's going to make me weaker if somebody comes and hits me next. So I'm not going to have the cards here to defend myself in the next battle, but I'm going to spread that margin to a 5-point victory so I get the 3 or the 6 victory points instead of the 2. So there's some interesting decisions there in the combat. But yeah, it was a fun game, and I do look forward to playing again. And again, I'll have to get you in on the next one because I think it'll be right up your alley. So
yeah, this one almost came out at a game day, and I was doing some research on it, thinking about it. Like I was considering it. It dudes on a map, and it kind of has a feel of a Scythe look to it in its time setting.
Sure, yeah.
So it's early 1800s kind of.
So don't ask me about theme.
Black powder.
I can't help you much there. I know they're warring factions, and the factions are pretty reasonable. They're 1800s, early 1900s types of artillery and cavalry.
Right.
But the Titans is the kind of the alternate universe thing where these Titans are there, and they give you. Yeah,
it's like as if some Napoleonic army got a hold of a giant Titan.
There you go.
To help them fight.
Yeah.
Hearing from you, Rob, where you talk about the combat being quick. That really, really sounds great. Yeah. Because a lot of my favorite games can have some slow combat, and it makes it harder to get to the table.
Like I said, the small amount of the armies is the big part of that, because a lot of times it's 2-on-1, maybe 3-on-2, 3-on-1. So there are some decisions to be made, but you're not having to make a bunch of decisions, not have to do multiple rounds to whittle guys down. It's just quick. Like I say, you roll the dice simultaneously. The defender modifies, the attacker modifies, and then it is what it is. Then you retreat.
I like the idea of the scaling victory at the end.
That was interesting.
That's pretty cool.
I haven't seen that.
A strong defeat, right, or victory is going to give you more points and hurt them more,
right.
But if it's almost a stalemate, it's like I pushed you back.
Yeah, and we had several of those where somebody went in, and there's also, I didn't mention, there's hidden objective cards that you get at the beginning of the game, and then you can acquire more throughout the game, but they may be one, like one I had said, win a combat by 7 or more, and so again, that's just one more decision. Ooh, do I, it gives me 4 victory points if I can pop it, but man, that's going to make me weak, because I'm going to have to use every card in my hand to rack up that huge victory, and there were times where people went in, and they were like, I'm just going to give it a shot, I'm just going to go all out, and then they missed it just by 1 or 2. They got 6 of the 7, and then that left them open. The next guy just comes and steps on them and like, oh, you got no cards left in your hand? All right, I'm attacking you now instead of that guy because you're vulnerable. So yeah, lots of those fun little decisions. So good game, but I recommend it. I recommend giving it a try. It's a newer release within the last year, but it's fun. I'll throw it to Mike. Mike, what have you been up to?
Working on my house a lot.
Okay, there you go.
I haven't played too many games this past week. A couple that I'd already discussed in past weeks, like King is Dead and Super Motherload. But the one new one was Cascadia. So that's a recent Kickstarter delivery.
The new hotness
AEG.
right now?
Yeah, I guess you could say it's the new hotness. A lot of people comparing it to Calico, I guess because of the tile drafting and same publisher.
Same publisher, yeah.
But anyway, Cascadia it's tile drafting, but also you're drafting wildlife tokens and placing them on your tiles that you're placing. The object of the game is, person with the most points at the end of the game is the winner. But you're taking turns drafting. There's 4 different tiles and 4 different tokens that are like kind of paired up with each other. And you are drafting a tile and a token from the same column or the same pair there and placing them. You're creating your own kind of corridors is what they called them. So there's like 5 different types of environments, like mountains and marshland and prairie, and your corridors are if you can connect on any one side of this hex piece that you're placing the same type of land, that would be considered your corridor. So if you have like 5 of them connected, you have a 5 thing that, and then each token or each tile that you place will have 1 or more types of wildlife that it can support. So not only are you trying to get the wildlife on there, there's these point cards. You randomly pick 1 from each type of wildlife. There's 5 different ones of those as well. And it's kind of like how you are placing this wildlife on your tiles is how you're going to score. So for argument's sake, when we were playing for salmon, it was any trail of salmon that you can place without any other salmon around it. So it's like a single, line going through. There's one for bears where it was like any bears that were 2 bears that were next to each other, but not surrounded by any other bears. So, depending on how many of those you had, you would gain points. Elk in a row without any elk around them, hawks that were just by themselves without any other hawks around them. So I can definitely see the comparison to Calico on the drafting side. I don't think it's quite as detrimental. There's more options. There's ways that you can mitigate. So there's also what they call nature tokens, which are like these leaves that you gain whenever you put a animal on what they call a keystone tile. And they're kind of like rare, they're not as common. And you can spend a wildlife token to pick any one tile and any one wildlife token. You don't have to pick the ones that are paired together. The thing is that your nature tokens are also worth 1 point at the end of the game. So the way that it scores is you score for all the different corridors that you have, and then whoever has the largest corridor will get bonus points, and whoever comes in second will also get bonus points. So you do that for all the different types of land, and then you do your animal scoring cards, and then your wildlife tokens, and then whoever has the highest total, is the winner. So getting back to like the comparison with Calico, when we were kind of like talking about this before the show, was like Calico, you could be placing or waiting for that one specific tile to come out to like really, bang out a bunch of points, and it just either never shows up, or somebody else takes it from you knowingly or unknowingly, or you place a tile by accident where you're thinking, oh, this would be a good place, and then you realize it screws all kinds of stuff up for you. It's a very punishing game. I think it's very AP prone, whereas Cascadia kind of gives you some leeway. So, you've got 4 different tokens to choose from instead of 2 or 3, which is, the Calico one. And there's ways to mitigate, like, I know I'm picking up this tile to place, and I know I'm picking up this wildlife, but I can place the wildlife anywhere I want. It doesn't have to be on that token that you're taking. So, and it kind of spreads the points out. and gives you more options for points in the game. So I enjoyed it. I enjoy Calico though as well. I think they're two different games. I mean, obviously they had the tile drafting portion of it, but if I want a brain burner that's going to wear me out, I would probably play Calico. You know, if I want something a little bit lighter that moves along at a little bit quicker pace, that isn't so mean by the end of the game, I would definitely pick out Cascadia. I wouldn't put it in my top 25 games of all time, you know, that I own, but I can definitely see it hitting the table more than not.
Yeah. I got to say that's I could say a lot about that. But yeah, I have been on record as not liking Calico, and I know Mitchell Prudhomme has called in a couple of times, and we've talked long distance from between here and Louisiana about he wasn't a fan of Calico either. We've talked about how we're generally not fans of puzzle games. I watched a playthrough of Cascadia online, and I think I would like that a lot more. And I couldn't put my finger on it as to why. And we had a conversation on one of the shows about that, I think with Mitchell calling in, about why we didn't like Calico. And it didn't hit me until I heard, you mentioned today, and then I actually heard the Dice Tower guys talking about it on their review about how Calico, as you go into the game, it becomes more restrictive. You have fewer places to place, and you're, like you say, a lot of times you're hoping for that one tile that may be in the bottom of the bag to come up at a particular point where you can place it, and it drops everything into place for you, and you score a bunch of points. But if that doesn't happen, then you feel like you're just having to put things in suboptimal places. You're being penalized, and it may screw up all the little patterns that you've been trying to build the whole game. And I didn't like that. I didn't like how hard I had to think about that and hoping for the right thing to come up at the right time. From what I understand, Cascadia and what I've seen, again, you're right, there's a lot more options. Again, there's going to be parts where you are going to have to do something suboptimal, and you'll be penalized because you're not getting what you want. But the way I heard the Dice Tower guys say it is, well, it's a couple of points. So if you have to put something in a bad place, it's a couple of points. You can move on. It's like, all right, well, I had to do that. But I'm going to overcome that by getting this pattern over here or doing this thing over there. And as you, in Cascadia, you're growing your options of where you can place things. And so I could see that getting a little slow at the end because now you're trying to find the optimal place because you have all these different options of where to put something. But I prefer that over the opposite of being restricted and feeling like, oh, I got to get that perfect tile or my whole game is done. So, I think
you also have with Cascadia, when you're looking at other people's, how they're placing their tiles. Like I recall when I was playing, it was with Dan and Mo. I looked over at Dan and he had like, I don't know, 8 or 9 tiles for his forest, for his corridor. And I was like, well, I'm not going to get the most corridor points. So I'm going to start, I started like picking up tiles for other types of corridors to kind of gain points in that area. So it was just, always ways to mitigate it more with Cascadia than Calico, definitely.
I'm getting some hints and feels of Between Two Castles of Matt King Ludwig.
Still have not played that game.
Right, because a lot of the tile placement in Between Two Castles has to do with placing them in a certain place that is around this, but not around that.
Yeah, okay.
Right, or you want to put them in this line order. We want all these types of rooms to be in a line that meet the dining room. Or so a lot of what you're saying reminded me of why I like Between Two Castles.
Sure, yeah,
Matt King Ludwig. But then I'm also seeing heavy influence of Ecos.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Now, Rob, and I'll say a lighter version of Ecos. Mike, you played Ecos?
I still have not.
No. Okay, that's a good game.
So the comparison may be lost here. But, Rob, you played Ecos. And what are your thoughts on the puzzle aspect of Ecos? And here, they're very similar. You're placing a tile for a certain type of wildlife.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar, and the looks are similar now when I think about it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the aesthetics of the game are definitely similar. I'm going to look up Ecos here real quick on the Board Game Geek.
What do you remember from Ecos in your enjoyment of it? I thought it was a great game, but it also has a lot more depth because there's action in there that you're you're tapping cards to take actions.
I remember that, placing the tiles and then tapping the cards. So that was definitely a little different than what I'm seeing in Cascadia.
Cascadia seems to be just the tile placement, just the wildlife placement in certain ways to score.
Right.
So almost like a simplified version of Ecos.
Right. Ecos, you're working on a community board, if I remember.
Yep.
It's one big board out in the middle that everybody's building on, so you can do things to try to block other people. Cascadia, you're building your own. Your own little.
Okay, so that's a good difference.
So yeah, that's going to be different because the player interaction isn't going to be nearly, I think, what it was in Ecos.
Yeah, like in Ecos, you can take an action to cause a herd to shift, and then maybe all the antelope shift one tile to the left.
And somebody needed them all in the plains to score their big points, but you get them all into the desert. So you can definitely mess with people when you can see in Ecos everything's up. You can kind of see what people are going for, what they're trying to do. So I think that's definitely
I think Mike, give those a try, and then let me know what you think. Do you feel
that sounds? I never really did any research on Ecos before. I don't know what it was that I guess didn't attract me to it.
Yeah.
It's not pretty.
I mean, there's just so many games. It's hard to keep track of everything, and I think it just kind of passed me by because I know it's not the new hotness. But,
Michael Fortino at Armada.
He loves that game.
Loves it. He introduced it to me. We did a playthrough video. Here we did it in my house. We did a playthrough video.
Yep.
And that's when we got a record number of pulls because you only have so many tiles in the bag. Each time you pull a tile, a resource comes out.
Yeah.
But if you ever pull the third wild, there's only 3 wild stones in the tile. Then you have to give up the bag and pass it. So there are some rounds where like I would pull 4 tiles and 3 of them would be wild and end my turn. Right, we're done.
And when you're pulling, everybody's doing the action, so you're not.
Everybody's using that
yourself.
resource to do stuff.
Yeah.
You're just hoping to see all the resources in the bag. You want to see all the eggs, all the stones, all the grass, all the water, so you can do a lot with it. When someone ends it, it just kind of changes the percentages of how stuff will come out.
Yeah.
But my nephew pulled, I think,
So your nephew
all of the tiles.
every tile.
Like Michael said in his 30, it was like 30, 40 plays.
He's played a bunch, yeah.
He's never seen somebody pull that many tiles. Anyway, Ecos, check it out.
That's a fun one, yeah.
Thanks for sharing
that sounds like
Cascadia.
something I would enjoy. Yeah.
How about you, Carlos?
They have it at the shop, so we can play it at Armada.
Yeah.
I played nothing but the entire week. And so we have an infant at home. Every once in a while, the kid goes through these growth spurts where she wants to eat like every hour, and this week has felt like that. So it's like a lot of hourly wake up. So I'm not really who I need to be right now.
Welcome, new baby. Yeah.
Yay! But I did play a lot of zombie kids evolution with my 10-year-old. Got my 14-year-old to play and my 18-year-old to play because each time you add a new person, you unlock some achievements. I'm not going to go deep into this. We talked about it in the call-in show a little bit, but Zombie Kids Evolution, I think, is ranked number 1 in BGG for children's games.
Kids games, yeah.
For a reason. Light, fast, and I'm talking 5 minutes fast. Some of the games are going to be in 5 minutes, and you're always moving forward. If you have kids, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and up, up to teenager, they're going to love this. It's legacy in that you're putting stickers on the rule book each time you complete a mission, and then once you reach certain missions, you can open up envelopes. We've unlocked hero powers that the players now have, but using those hero powers has a negative. So like you add 2 zombies around instead of 1 zombie around, but you get this power. So now I just unlocked a power, which I'm super happy. I'm not going to spoil it because that's probably the funnest part is the powers.
You said legacy, so you sold me. I'm in. When are you playing?
Bring Ian over. Ian over.
All right.
We've only got...
I want to play, not Ian, but okay. Legacy, I'm in. Yeah.
I think I played, was it 8 rounds this week alone?
Oh, yeah.
Of this little game. That's how fast and fun they are. So
I can't remember if you said this. Can you reset it when you're done with everything, or is it?
I don't think so.
Like once you play, you're done.
Because you're going to sticker and you're going to write stuff in the book and stuff.
Yeah, and you're cracking open the envelopes and pulling stickers into the rule book, kind of like Betrayal Legacy. I need to go check to see if you end up with a product that you can continue to use. I think you do have that, almost like Betrayal Legacy, where you end up with your version of that game. I think Kids Evolution. But then there's Zombie Teens Evolution,
the next
which
one.
supposedly makes it harder, but also add some darker themes to it. Like right now, you're just scaring teacher zombies out of the classrooms. You're shooing them away. You're like moving them around.
Get rid of them teacher zombies.
Right. Teacher zombies are trying to take over the school, and your job is to get them out of the school, lock the 4 gates, and you win.
All right. Yeah.
So
Cool.
that is literally all I've played. That was it. I'm done.
Okay. Well, I'm going to touch on the other game that I played. I thought I had played more, but when I looked back, I didn't record the plays. But I had a chance to play a game that I've played a few times before, and one I definitely like. On tour, my daughter.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, my daughter Emmy and I got over to the Board Game Cafe over to Your Turn this last weekend on Sunday, I believe it was. And we got up there just before they closed, a couple hours before they closed, and we were picking up some merchandise. But I asked her, I was like, hey, you want to just pull a game and play it real quick? Mom's waiting for us for dinner, but we can fit in a quick game of something. So on tour, I mean, that fit the bill. It was we pulled it out. She had never played before. On tour, just briefly here, you're just the theme. I'm going to go theme. The theme on it is you're making a tour route for your band, and you're trying to. It's just a grid. We played the U.S. version. There's a U.S. and a Europe. We played the U.S. It's just a bunch of circles on a map of the United States. You're rolling dice, 2 dice, which give you random numbers. Then you're flipping 3 area location cards, and again, without getting all the details, you're just filling in these numbers until you run out of spaces to put numbers. And then when you're all done, in sequential order from low to high or high to low, however you want to look at it, you're drawing a line to connect as many of the adjacent cities, going in order from 1 to 2 to 3 to 6 to 10 to 15, and you're trying to make this longest line that you can. There's a couple different ways to get points, just by connecting things, or if you place the exact numbers in exact cities, you circle them and get you a bonus point as you go along. But she had never played. We knocked it out in well under an hour. It was probably 30-ish minutes, and she really liked it. She said she definitely wants to play again. So that's a fun game. It's on tour, 1 to 4 players, 20 minutes. It says advertised, 7.1 BGG rating.
It plays way more players than that, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You could.
I had the 12-player edition.
Okay. So they have that at the shop too. I know you had a bunch of boards in there, so,
right?
Yeah.
Unlimited number of players.
Yeah,
as long as you have the boards for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you just print them out. I remember they were putting them out during COVID.
Yeah, I remember we played online. It's I don't know if you introduced me to it or not. I might have played once before. But
I got my copy up there.
Yeah, we printed out some sheets from home, and then you rolled the dice, and we just played on Zoom. I know.
As I was learning how to work with cameras and stuff.
Yeah, but good game. So we got a chance to get that in, and just a quick little filler game that was a lot of fun. But
did she beat you?
She did not.
What?
Yeah,
I thought I had her pegged for the math one.
Yeah, she got stuck, and that's a game that if you get stuck on the numbers, you have to play something in the middle, and it can mess up everything that you did. Instead of having one long route, you may have 2 short routes. So I think that's where she got stuck. She ended up not being able to connect everything at the end. So but a good game. But how about you, Mike? Anything else you've been playing or?
No, that's really it. I've been very preoccupied with other things, unfortunately.
Any movies? Any geeky goodness?
Any other things you've been distracting yourself
TV
with?
shows? I don't know.
Well, yeah. I watched the What If episodes. I think episode 3 came out yesterday. I watched that one.
I haven't seen that one yet.
That's on Disney Plus?
Yeah, Disney Plus.
Okay, yeah.
The last one was actually really good. I liked it. I don't want to give anything away, but
You can give away the character or the world it's in without giving it away.
It's in our world.
No, I'm saying like the first one was Captain America, right? The second one was like Star-Lord-ish. What's the third
this one is kind of like
Guardians of the Galaxy. That's what I'm looking for. That was the second one. Star-Lord.
It has to do with the Avengers. I'll put it that way. I don't want to give anything away because it's something I did not expect.
Okay, cool.
I tried to stay away from like the previews and everything, so I went into it blind. And
I'll watch it tonight.
I will say though that they're, you know how like some of them they kind of like take scenes directly from movies, from like the MCU. This one they actually pulled a scene, even though it was a Marvel film. It wasn't like one of the MCU films. And you'll know it when you see it, but I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. They actually played it out exactly how it was in that movie without actually changing it, but it fit perfectly in with the theme of the episode itself. So pretty cool.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I watched that, and then the only other thing that I watched was the origin story for Snake Eyes. So if you're a big G.I. Joe fan, you know what I'm talking about.
Are you priming yourself for the deck builder? Is that what you're doing here?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right.
Getting
For
into
the G.I. Joe.
Deck builder coming
The
out.
Transformers one is going to deliver before that, unfortunately.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I thought the movie was good. I mean, I think if you're not a G.I. Joe fan, you'll be kind of like, you know. But I always thought Snake Eyes was like the bad A character, out of G.I. Joe. Never said anything, but, always went in and kicked butt and, walked out. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Now you know.
How about you, Carlos?
Knowing's half the battle.
Go, Joe. I watched, I don't know why I've been on this trip, this 80s like movie trip. I guess I'm just trying to get some nostalgia. Children of the Corn, 1984 film, horror movie.
Scary stuff.
All I remember as a kid was being afraid of this movie. I don't remember why I was afraid of this movie. As an adult, like I said, it's very campy. It is a very campy, kind of cheesy, like, why are you running? Just get in the car and go. Come on, bro. Like, how hard is this?
Yeah.
Just keep moving.
Makes too much sense.
Right. All those things, all those tropes happen.
Yeah.
But my wife and I were joking about it, but the soundtrack of that movie is so creepy. It's got this, this almost like a monastery chanting, like getting louder.
Oh yeah. Okay, I got you.
And I'm all like, oh God, something bad's gonna happen.
Get your blood pumping, get you going. Yeah.
And then you got these creepy kids, just taking. It's evil kids. Okay, spoiler alert. The statutory.
How many years old is that movie? Yeah.
Look, if you haven't watched it by now,
Probably not going to happen.
But I didn't remember it much at all. And the whole time I'm thinking, okay, so this is a bunch of kids that went crazy. These kids are nuts, and they took over a town. But and then at the end, that whole Stephen King, there is an evil spirit, he is an evil thing,
course,
and Cthulhu or whatever. We don't even know what it was. Like and come to find out, there's like 7 or 8 other movies that followed it all the way up to 2020, like a prequel of the Children of the Corn has come out as late as 2020. It's like there's part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5, part 666.
Oh yeah.
After that is the Revelation. So it's like, now I want to figure out what was this evil thing that turned these kids crazy.
Keep watching. Yeah.
I don't think you're going to find your answers.
Apparently,
that's why they keep going back to the well.
40 years later, they're still making movies.
Not revealing it. Yeah.
But yeah, I've been having fun doing these old 80s movies. What about you, Rob? Well,
the only other one I was going to mention that I wasn't sure again how geeky goodness it was, but I mentioned, you said go ahead and throw it out there. I watched Midway, which is a World War II movie about the battle in the Pacific. It starts out at the beginning with the Pearl Harbor, so it starts out right at the beginning of bringing U.S. into the war, and it's the Pacific battles with the Japanese fleet, and I'm pretty ignorant.
I'll interrupt you.
Yeah.
Right? You say it's not gaming related.
Okay.
But if you look around here, how many World War II games I have?
Yeah. Well,
that is fluff.
You're out of the
That
norm
is
for
gamer
that,
fluff.
Yeah. So a little,
that right there.
history.
I own this movie and I've seen it a dozen times.
Yeah. It was a good movie.
This is gamer fluff.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
It was really good, and it's obviously historical. I assume pretty historically accurate.
Yes.
Again,
Very,
my ignorance on it. I didn't realize how dominant the Japanese were in the Pacific Theater when we first came in. I mean, they were talking about like it was 15-1 as far as like carriers and destroyers and stuff. And I just always assumed that it was a pretty even fight in the Pacific. But I mean, the Battle of Midway is what this builds up to. Obviously, the title of the movie, and so
spoiler.
Yeah. Spoiler alert! The Battle of Midway is going to happen.
I wonder what the Pearl Harbor movie is about.
Yeah, exactly. So Midway, I guess, was a big swinging point in the war where we went from being vastly inferior in the Pacific Theater to actually being pretty much on, it looks like, even ground at that point. And then obviously history will tell what happened after that. I won't spoil anything more than that. But
listen, we're not goose stepping.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So we did win.
Idea. Yeah, you have an idea.
We did win the war.
But, so it was good stuff. But that was good. I mean, it was so it's a lot about the ships, and then so a lot of dogfighting, a lot of the carriers and things. So we're really good. The Zeros, the Japanese Zeros. and they didn't do a whole lot about on the kamikaze, the dive bombing and stuff like that. But it was a good movie. It was a fun time. Pretty much my whole family. The 9-year-old wasn't too interested in it, but the other two, my son especially, he's starting to be interested in history, and so he was.
That's my boy. I've been trying to get him into wargaming.
Yeah,
he's dabbled in wargaming more than you have, Rob.
Yeah, he was talking through about half of it, and he was asking questions and stuff. I was like, I don't know, just watch the movie. So, anyway, but no, it was definitely worth a watch. It was a fun movie. It was a good watch. So. And lots of cameos in that movie. I didn't realize all the actors who were in that, and it's like they pop up one after another. I was like, oh, he's in this, he's in that. Okay, good stuff. So, but yeah, fun movie. It moved along a little quick. They were trying to fit a lot into a short film, and so I did feel like it was jumping around a little bit. It was a little rushed. A lot of the scenes seemed to cut quick to the next part of what was going on. So about halfway through it, I was like, man, they're really moving through this pretty quick. But if I remember, the movie's over 2 hours or right at 2 hours, so it's a
oh wow,
it's not particularly short. I guess it's not particularly long. We've got some epic movies out these days, but definitely worth a watch. I would definitely recommend it. Yeah,
you'll find very few inaccuracies that were done to ham it up.
Yeah,
but there were so many cool actual factual tidbits in there.
Sure, seemed like it.
The code breakers that were there. These were orchestra students, right? Because they knew music, so they can see patterns in music. They can see patterns in the code.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, and the guy who led him was a nut.
Yeah.
He walked around in a robe all day.
Yeah, and fuzzy slippers
and fuzzy slivers. And that was real. That was a real dude.
I imagine. Yeah.
You know, I mean, oh man, you got my nerd is
are they going to watch it again now?
My nerd is I own it. I've watched it 12 times and I'll watch it again.
It was good.
Great movie. Good. Very game related, because that's fluff for war gamers.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, I've read historical books on all sorts of stuff, because it is like, it's like narrative for wargamers.
Yeah, I was interested in the historical part of it. I was hoping it was pretty accurate, but I'm not a wargamer, so it's not going to carry over too much. But
we keep going around in circles here until somebody knocks.
I'm pretty much done. So, Mike, you got anything else?
The only other thing I was going to touch on is audiobook that I started. I'd finished... I'm trying to remember, the Daisy's Run was a sci-fi one that I finished. But anyway, the book that I wanted to talk about was it's the second book in the Off to Be the Wizard books. I don't know if you guys have heard of this one. So it's kind of like a comedic type of book or storyline. So the first one is called Off to Be the Wizard, and it's about this kind of like early 20s kid that still lives with his parents, kind of doing like hacker stuff on the side, you know, at home. And I'm not giving anything away because this pretty much happens pretty early in the book. He comes across this database in this company. He was hacking this company. He comes across this database, and it's like this ginormous database and all this weird code. And he ends up finding like his name in this particular database, and like all these, you know, weird codes associated with his name. And come to find out, the story is that we're living in a kind of like the Matrix.
I was going to say Matrix now.
Right. So he realizes, like, where in this code, like he, you know, tried changing one thing, and then he realized like it changed something in the real world, the real world.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're a 20-something that lives home with your parents, you know, what do you typically do? Well, he starts putting money in his bank account. You know, he's like changing numbers and he's buying all these things, and the feds catch up with him. Well, anyway, he escapes, because you can pretty much put yourself in any time, like in history. So he puts himself in England back in the medieval days, and he shows up as this wizard. But the thing is there's all these other people that are from different time periods that have done the exact same thing. So he thinks he's going to be there and like be this, you know, like, they're going to be so, you know, blown away by my, you know, my wizardry. And, like the leader wizard comes in and like totally wipes him off the map, and then, you know, takes him under his, you know, there's like this whole thing that you have to go through, and like kind of like, I keep wanting to say internship, but
like an
you have to like, yes, an apprenticeship. You have to pass these tests to prove that you're not going to be doing stupid things to try and like overrun, the time that you're in. Right. So the first book, there's a story to it. And, obviously this main character ends up making it. And at the very end of that book, a guy shows up kind of like this kid shows up. And the second book is the continuation of it. There's a lot more to it, and without giving anything away, but there's a lot of funny stuff. Like the main wizard came back from the 80s and slowly, part by part, because you can like bring smaller things with you. Like you can jump back and forth from the past to your present. And he is 100% 80s. So he's got like the mullet and he's into like, hair metal. And he brought back with him part by part. He rebuilt a 1984 Fiero. Because it was like the hot car back then.
That Pontiac was amazing.
So his big thing is like he's got the Fiero and he's got his stand-up Gorf, arcade machine in the medieval times. But it's just a funny book the way that it's written, and I'm probably about maybe a quarter into the second book, and it's just as good as the first one. I think there's 3 or 4 books in the series, but I would recommend it if you kind of like want that funny,
kind of give you some of the vibes,
jumping in time and
some of the vibes that you got from Ready Player One. It feels like it gives you some of that vibe.
Or Bill and Ted's Excellent
I guess
Adventure.
you could say that.
That was joyful. I would like to repeat those vibes from Ready Player One.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't go quite that far, but
hints on nostalgia, hints on technology.
It touches on that. And you have like your other wizards that are
Martin Lawrence Black Knight.
Yeah, very similar to that.
classic.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
Rob's favorite movie.
Yeah, of course.
It's like it's a funny Matrix, I guess you could say, but it's in medieval times. It's pretty funny.
All right, Carlos.
All right, I've got. I spent some time at Your Turn recording with Dan and Sarah.
Oh yeah,
we recorded an interview of their, how they started, really interesting stories from them. So they'll be publishing some of those soon. I think they're going to be doing a Kickstarter as they begin expanding the cafe.
Yep.
I had a blast doing that. That was so much fun. So I want to thank them for having me out there. Big thing is Kill Team released this weekend. The new edition of Kill Team is releasing, and it's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a full big set. I think Your Turn has it. Armada has it. They've redone the whole game, and it's going to be its own thing, no longer tied into 40K directly anymore. So that's huge. It's like before, the game was very much a simplified version of 40K. If you play 40K, you can touch on it. Now it's its own thing. It's going to be the tournament scenes will start kicking in. You'll see me getting into some of the modeling of that, and looking forward to see what that brings to my miniatures hobbying time.
Yeah.
Taking it away.
You got Blood Bowl.
Still doing Blood Bowl.
Yeah.
Blood Bowl League starts again on Monday, so I'll be there. I think Nick Oben's going to jump in. Max Burns is going to come by this Saturday. I'm going to give him a 101 on how to play. He's going to borrow one of my teams and some dice, and he'll be playing in the league to see if it's something he wants to keep playing in.
Cool.
So Blood Bowl's still there.
All right. Yeah.
I love it.
Rob looks very thrilled.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm not thrilled, but I'm just worried about Carlos if he's going Kill Team and Blood Bowl and board games and war games.
Gotta catch them all.
I guess so. Yeah.
So that's it. And on that I tap. I think we've all knocked around.
Yeah. That's it.
Yep.
That was a good.
I'm tapping out.
Another great episode. Circadians First Light, the chat, a lot of games played. Yep. Looking forward to doing this again with you all next week.
Absolutely.
We will have Patrick Havert on the so this Thursday. This is going to publish on Sunday. So Thursday of next week, Patrick Havert of Escape WinterCon is going to be joining us for the call-in show. So be sure to call in during that episode and ask Patrick all kinds of questions about what it's like to run conventions. Yeah. Right? What's the plan for Escape Winter?
He's been doing it for years, yeah.
Yep, and I'm hoping to see this continue. I know Rob and I have some scheduling issues. We're trying to make it happen.
Yep.
But having him on board is going to be great.
That'd be fun.
So that's going to wrap us up for our podcast tonight. And I want to thank y'all for listening. Thank y'all for watching on the tubes and calling in on the call-in show.
Liking, subscribing, all those good things wherever you're getting your podcasts. Yep.
I'm Carlos.
I'm Rob.
I'm Mike.
And we're a podcast about
how we game.
Catch y'all on the next one, y'all.
Thanks,
Take
everybody.
care.
Thanks for watching the Beans and Dice podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe.